Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. So, I'm not too sure if I wanna do Twisters, a review of Twisters, which is the sequel to Twister, but I wanna talk a little bit about what I've noticed recently. And I believe it started with Independence Day. See, Independence Day 1 came out 20 years before in 2016 Independence Day 2, Independence Day Resurgence, came out exactly, and I do mean exactly 20 years later. Exactly 20 years later. And in 2022, we got the return of William Dafoe as the Green Goblin. 20 years later, we got the return of Tobey Maguire, like 19 years later, or somewhere around there. No, not 19. 17 years later. Either 16. Yeah, 16 years later, because I was 26 when Spider-Man No Way Home came out. But also 36 years later, or 31 years later, the return of Michael Keaton's Batman comes back to us on the silver screen, and 36 years later, the return of Michael Keaton's famous return of Beetlejuice. Bad Boys 2 or Bad Boys 3 came out, I want to say either 27 or 28 8 years later after Bad Boys 1, and this year Bad Boys 4 comes out 24 years later after the events of Bad Boys 2. We get Hugh Jackman after a after an 8-year, maybe 9-year gap or retirement of playing the longest running single character to ever come back, and the return of Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom in the MCU, which is insane to, a lot. Oh, and 20 years or 21 years later after and 20 years and 21 years later we get Blade and Elektra back after 20 years, and Johnny Storm 20 years later. Or 19 years later, 19 years later. See, and we got Kung Fu Panda 4. We got a 34-year gap between The Karate Kid and The Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, which lines up, 34 years after the events of Cobra Kai lines up with 34. All 6 seasons lines up with 34 years and 30 years. 34 to 30 years after all the events of The Karate Kid through the next Karate Kid. So I think there's a trend happening, and it's interesting. It is interesting, to say the least. But no, it's interesting. 20 years later, Twisters comes out, or came out, after 28 years of Twister and rumors of Twisters happening. It's interesting. I don't know what the hell is happening, but things do seem interesting and intriguing, to say the least. Oh, and another thing. Happy Gilmore 2. Happy fucking Gilmore 2 is coming after, wanna say 30 years later? Maybe 31 years, or 29 years later? And Beverly Hills Cop 4 comes out exactly 30 years later. And 40 years later, after Beverly Hills Cop 1 and Beverly Hills Cop 4. 3. Beverly Hills Cop 3. Isn't that interesting? 2020 just seems to be the year or the decade of bringing old nostalgia IPs back. Think about it. Interesting. And I believe it started with Independence Day 2. Which I hope if Disney gives us Independence Day 3, they give us Independence Day 3 in 2026. Please give us Independence Day 3 in 2026. Because that would be pretty cool. And you don't really have to do much. You can wait 30 30 to 40 years to give us Independence Day 4, 6, 5, and 6. Just release them in gaps, in forms of gaps. Please. I mean, it's interesting, you know. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys so far for right now. Please like, share, subscribe, and have a good day. Thanks. Bye.